And I am delighted to now be joined by Scott Coyne from the Belgian Football Podcast, ahead of Thursday night's huge Conference League quarter-final second leg against Gent. It's perfectly poised at 1-1 after last Thursday's draw in Belgium. Fair to say that West Ham can feel quite fortunate, actually, to still be in the tie, let alone take the draw back to Stratford. Gent outplayed us for most of the first leg, 20 shots on goal to our 4, 55% possession and 8 corners. They were the better team on the night. Scott, thanks for joining us, mate. What's the feeling in Belgium and in Gent around that first leg and the chances for the second leg?
Well, I think Gent were a little bit disappointed not to be coming to London with a slight lead. They played quite well in the night, I thought. Missed 2 or 3 really, really good chances at this level, which I think, from a Gent perspective and a Belgian perspective, we're hoping that doesn't come back to bite them. It's very, very finely poised now. I think West Ham probably are slight favourites at the moment going into the second game, because you always want the second game in these situations being at home. I think is a big plus for them. I think West Ham almost certainly will play better in this second game as well for a number of reasons. So it's all to play for, really.
Was it a surprise that Gent approached the game that they did and probably should have won the game? I know West Ham had gone into the game favourites, not underestimating Gent, it's worth pointing out, but were favourites and, as you said, quite likely favourites for the second leg. But was it a bit of a surprise that actually on the night Gent should have really run away with it in the end?
Well, they went into the game actually in very good form, and Gent's head coach Hein van Huyzenbroek was really playing down their chances, which is, a bit of mind games more than anything else. That's something he kind of likes to do. He can very often be complimentary about the opposition, particularly going into, bigger games. It's something that you do see him doing. So I don't think anybody in Belgium read too much into him playing down Gent's chances. Gent have a kind of plethora of striking options at the moment. They're very good up top. Hugo Kuipers, who scored in the first leg, he's the top scorer in the Pro League in Belgium at the moment. He's got 19 goals and 4 assists and is having a really strong season. And of course, everybody now, including a lot of people in England, will know about Gift Orban, 20-year-old Nigerian striker who's really just had a meteoric rise since he's been in Belgium, and he hasn't been there very long. Scored 5 goals in 5 games in Europe as well. So he's already proved that he can do it at this level. Never mind domestically, he's got 9 and 9. In the Belgian Pro League as well, so 14 and 14 is not bad at all, and he's attracting a hell of a lot of attention at the moment, and it's been an incredible find for the scouting department again, and they're really hoping that they can hold on to him this summer, because he hasn't been there for very long. People are getting very excited, and I keep telling people whenever his name comes up that people need to calm down just a little bit. He's on fire at the moment, but I think he is outperforming a little bit. He did nearly score a spectacular goal with that overhead kick in the first game that kind of came off the bar. He was very unlucky with that. So they have in Kuipers and Orban 2 players who can score goals and will definitely cause that West Ham defence problems. There's also another player who didn't get mentioned very much in the lead up to the first game, who is very much a potential game changer here, and that's Tarik Tissoudali, who had an extraordinary season last year for Gent, and then picked up a really bad ACL injury, which he's only just come back from. Interestingly, he played 45 minutes at the weekend in Gent's league game against Mechelen. So I think Hein van Huyzenbroek very much has him in mind to feature at some point on Thursday evening, because that's the first time he's played as much in a while. He's had a little 10-15 minutes here or there over the last 3 or 4 weeks, but that's the first significant game time he's had as they gently work him up to full fitness again, and I think that will help if Gent need him for 30-40 minutes possibly on Thursday night, which they may well do depending on how the game pans out.
You mentioned Gift Orban there, and I did a couple of my questions about him because, I mean, quite honestly, he was a pain in the backside for West Ham on Thursday night. I don't think the defenders really understood what they were coming up against with him. He was quick, direct, wasn't afraid to have a shot from anywhere. As you can see from that overhead kick, he had a shot from about 40 yards as well, which wasn't too far away. Is he the secret weapon still for Ghent in this second leg? Because although he's not so much a secret anymore, I don't think 7 days isn't really enough to kind of work out how to deal with him. But also, is this also a case of just got to chill out a little bit with all the hype around him? Because we've seen a lot of 20-year-olds that have hit the ground running in Europe burst onto the scene. Everyone goes mad. A club will buy the player for millions and millions, and then suddenly he kind of just fizzles away into the background. Is this kind of a case of that? Or do you think he has what it takes to hit the very, very top of the game? Because just I've seen him for 70, 80 minutes. I was like, this is a player that I'd love to see in the Premier League one day.
Yeah, I think he could definitely play at that level. I mean, he's shown that already. I think the thing about him is that he plays with a fearlessness.
Yeah.
That just makes him very difficult to handle for anybody. And you highlighted his shooting there. I think his shooting ability is probably one of his greatest qualities. He's very good physically. Obviously, he's very strong, which places him well to play in the Belgian league because that's traditionally quite a physical league. So being strong physically is important, regardless of where you play in a side in Belgium, and he's certainly got that. But he did very well in Scandinavia when he was there, and I think the really big surprise is quite how quickly he settled in Belgium and started to produce the goods on a consistent basis. And because of his shooting ability, he like a lot of really good African strikers, he has that quality of being happy to shoot from most anywhere on the pitch. So if he gets a sniff, he'll have a pop. And he's not short of confidence, I think, as well. Like I was saying, he's good physically, so the needle side of the game is not something he struggles with. He's clearly very competitive. He did actually say on a Belgian TV show a couple of weeks ago that he does aspire to come into the Premier League. That's where he would like ultimately to be. So he's in the best possible shop window at the moment to do that, and to have scored 5 and 5. In the Conference League so far this season, just shows that actually, if anybody had any doubts, not that you should, that, okay, he's doing great in Belgium, but, can he do it at a level above that? He can, because he's doing it in Europe. Those who watch Belgian football regularly will know that the standard of football there actually is very high. I mean, you're talking about probably the 7th league in Europe in terms of its quality. And a lot of young African players come through Belgium as their first port of call on way to the major kind of top 5 leagues, and he's on that pathway at the moment. I think it's important he maybe stays for another year. I think really, elite clubs in those top 5 leagues, I think, will certainly be tracking him at the moment. But often these clubs want a slightly longer period just to kind of make an informed assessment about whether he's just having a really good period of form or whether this is something that can be sustained over a longer term. But I think when you look at his numbers so far in Belgium and Scandinavia, I think he's somebody that is going to be followed for quite a while now. I think it's just a question of price more than anything else. I think if somebody comes in with Ghent will have an asking price regardless of how little they want to let him go at this stage. But he's been pretty extraordinary, actually. I think Ghent were hoping he would reach this level eventually. I think what they haven't been prepared for is the fact that he's just kind of exploded onto the scene, and that says a lot, I think, about his mental attitude and his approach. And I think he'll relish going out in front of a crowd that size and having a right good go. And it'll be really, really interesting to see how West Ham do choose to handle him, because he's clearly probably the main danger man because of his potential to score from almost anywhere. Kuipers is very much a striker who operates inside the box, and is pretty good with his link-up play. Orban is the one who, if I was David Moyes, would worry me a little bit more.
In the first thing in particular, he he outpowered, I thought, Angelo Ogbonna on a number of occasions, completely outmuscled him. And to be doing that as a 20-year-old against an experienced Premier League former Juventus centre-back in Ogbonna was quite something to see, actually. I think he even forced Ogbonna into a yellow card, which was quite impressive. But yeah, I would expect him to, just having seen him for such a short time, to really relish the occasion on Thursday night. With that in mind, how do Gent approach this game? Because, as you said at the beginning, West Ham probably favourites, home crowd. We know how, having seen West Ham in the Europa League quarterfinals against Sevilla, especially last season. The last 16 last season, in that the fans can whip up an atmosphere, quite a raucous atmosphere when there's a big game. And in my eyes, and Will's eyes as well on the podcast, Thursday night's arguably our biggest game of the season. We want to get to another European semi-final, so it's likely going to be bouncing. How do you get to approach that? Because that's going to play a role, I think, the atmosphere.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing to say about the atmosphere in particular is that a lot of these Gent players won't be used to playing in a crowd, against a crowd of that size. The London Stadium is a big stadium, bigger than all of them in Belgium, actually. So that'll be an interesting test in itself. I think players like Orban, as I was saying, I think he will relish it and probably respond very well to that. How some of the other team respond is going to be really interesting to see. I think it's important to go out and play with a degree of fearlessness. I mean, it's very finely poised, and these opportunities to reach major European semi-finals don't come along very often for players. So when you're in a situation like this, I think you want to at least go out there and put in a performance that you don't regret at the end of it. Even if you don't manage to get through, you don't want to go out there and go, well, we didn't really give it as good a go as we could have done. So I think they have to come and really have a good go. I think it's important that they start well. I think losing an early goal, I think, would be the worst possible start. Not because it's not something that you don't want to happen, because you definitely don't. But I think it can help swing the momentum in a game in a way that a game can get away from you very, very easily if that sort of thing happens. So I think the opening 20 minutes, half an hour, are going to be really telling and important. And I think both sides probably will want to keep it quite tight in that period, although the impetus is going to be in West Ham as the home side, and their fans are going to expect them to kind of set the tempo early. Gent are quite a good side defensively, generally speaking, as well. So they have, over the last couple of years, had a history of starting games kind of quite slowly, which they can't afford to do here. So I just hope they turn up and give it a really good go. Because you don't want to miss an opportunity like this. It's a particularly big week for them, actually, as well. Just to put this in its fullest context, obviously there's the potential prize of a major European semi-final up for grabs, but at the weekend they've got the last regular game of the season in the Belgian Pro League before the playoffs start, and if they win their home game against Oostende, which I think everyone's expecting them to, because Oostende were relegated last weekend, they're going to guarantee themselves a playoff one spot, which is the championship playoff here in Belgium. And although they're too far off the pace to win the title, making playoff one is huge in terms of their budgetary potential for next season, and obviously where they may end up playing their European football next season as well. And if they do that, it will be at the expense of Club Brugge, which is very interesting, because if they miss out, that'll be the first time since the playoffs were instigated in Belgium that they've ever missed out on playoff one. So it's a really big week, and if they can achieve both of those things, it'll be quite something for the club, I think.
Do you think that plays on the mind of some of the players? That because I'm concerned that a similar thing might be the case at West Ham, given we've got a big game against Bournemouth on Sunday. That game will likely have a say in the relegation race one way or another. Do you think that plays a role? Maybe not so much in the players, but the way that the manager lines up tactically.
I think sometimes it does. I mean, I think the context here is similar, but also different in that I think from a West Ham perspective, obviously staying in the Premier League is probably you always want to win a European trophy given the opportunity. Don't get me wrong, but I think the bigger long-term prize from a West Ham perspective is it's important that they maintain their Premier League status. I think the bigger game of the two from a Gent perspective is actually Thursday. Because if they can get through that tie and they reach the semi-final, then I think anything's possible. Domestically they've had a pretty good season. I think even if they miss out on the playoffs, they will still make playoff 2 in the worst case scenario, which means they'll still get a chance to compete for European football because the winner of playoff 2 in Belgium goes into the Conference League. So the bigger of the two games from the Gent perspective is the game on Thursday. I think a lot of West Ham fans probably think that, it's more important that West Ham preserve their Premier League status and maybe would forgo, if they had a choice, their status is more important. So it's difficult. I mean, I think, it's a cliche, but I think you have to take one game at a time. I think you do. And I think that'll be the message probably from both coaches as far as that's concerned. Go out, play this game. Don't play ahead to the weekend as well. Like I was saying, these opportunities don't come along very often. West Ham went quite close, obviously last season. To doing something really big in Europe. So they've had a taste of how exciting that can be and what that feels like. Belgium haven't had a side in a major European final or even a semi-final for a very long time now, and they're interestingly on the cusp of having potentially 3 sides making European semi-finals, which would be, that would be pretty extraordinary, and we're having a temporary excitement here about the possibility of whether that's even possible. There's a good chance one of them's going to make it at least, but which one we don't know. Hopefully it'll be more. So it's finally paused, I think, to be a really open, exciting game, I think, on Thursday.
Yeah, potential obviously to be an all-Belgian semi-final, obviously with Anderlecht taking a 2-0 lead into the second leg against Alkmaar. Quite interesting. Anyway, Scott, before we let you go, let's have your prediction for Thursday night. Score prediction.
If you'd asked me this before the first leg, I think I would have probably favoured West Ham, but I think Gent are playing quite well at the moment. And I think with Kuipers and Orban, they've got a real chance to do something quite special here. So I think Gent might actually nick this 2-1 on the night.
Interesting. I can't remember. I was saying to my mates the other day that I think we'd win, but I'm going to say that we'll sneak it 2-1. It's going to be very tight though. I can see it being a very, very cagey affair all night. It's going to be a little bit tense in the stadium as well, especially if we start slowly. But no, Scott, really appreciate you coming on and giving us the lowdown ahead of that second leg.
Pleasure. Anytime, James.